So, might be something worth mentioning too. Yeah, they're almost at 10,000% of their goal.
We're hot mic'd.
Morality.
Tonight, we take a look at the latest episode of Star Trek Picard, then we head out to a galaxy far, far away and check out the latest episode of Mando. Then we come back to our own galaxy with Star Trek Deep Space Nine. All this coming up right now on The Writer Brothers. And welcome back once again to the best place to be on Tuesday nights. I am, of course, your host, Petey York, joined, as always, by Mr. Corione, Witch in Residence, and Mr. Pollo Zapatos, not Witch in Residence. And, of course, coming back for more because he had such a great time last week, our guest panelist slash currently working to become a permanent panelist, Mr. Skoglioten. Gentlemen, how are we feeling tonight?
I'm doing great, and don't worry, Skogli, you will earn tenure at some point and be able to goof off and be crazy like the rest of us.
Yeah, once we can afford it, the pay will be better, I promise. It'll still be $0.00 an hour, and the benefits are somehow worse, but it's absolutely worth it, I promise.
And you'll feel better about it, too, so there's that.
Yeah, exactly.
In the words of HR, we just really need you to sacrifice a little bit longer. And, when a promotion comes available, we'll accept your application.
We'll definitely pick somebody else, but we'll accept your application.
Yeah.
Cheers,
All
everybody.
right.
Don't
So,
worry, Skogli,
Corion, why
we're,
don't you kick us off with some pop culture news?
All right, so we've got a whole bunch of craziness going on in the world right now. Let's start out with the world of Lucasfilm, and more lovingly referred to, that I'm going to refer to as the Lucasfilm prepping for the bloodbath. According to Cameron Pasha, and corroborated by Overlord DVD, both friends of the channel and named gentlemen. According to the rumors that they are hearing, the Disney firings are going to continue throughout this week, and the attitude inside Lucasfilm is not great. Morale is apparently at an all-time low. People, the exact words were apparent, according to Sparrow, was, "It's like a death cult in the San Francisco office. Like people are waiting to see who the leadership is going to choose to drink the Kool-Aid next." So, yeah, they're definitely more than a little freaked out. Apparently, Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy had a meeting face-to-face this week where Kennedy was told that if Indy 5 was not profitable, that she was going to be fired publicly and in a very loud manner. And according to sources, she's now gone back to reshoot sections of Indy 5 again, but does not have a great timeline in order to do it. So she's only going to have about the 2 weeks before the production has to be finished before it to be ready for the public. So I can't imagine that she's going to have enough time to fix anything that Iger told her particularly was not working. So we have that going on. We also have something a little near and dear to my heart personally. For any of you guys who are aware, one of my big passions is actually BattleTech. It's a basic game of, in the far future, it's robots fighting. Men piloting robots fighting in the far future. It's a tactical board game and has one of the most deep lores out there of anything. And they were planning on raising $50,000 with the new Kickstarter that they were running for the new version of the game. And 50,000 Canadian, and it's now over 6.2 million. So
Wow.
yeah, well, exactly right. BattleTech is back, baby, and it's becoming big. So I'm hoping I can try to convince the boys on the panel here that maybe we should do some live streaming of some BattleTech, or maybe getting a little into the lore at some point. If the people on the channel want to see us play the military version of Rock'em Sock'em Robots, you guys just have to let us know in the chat.
I've been working on my voices, so I can play multiple characters if need be.
Nice. So
And I can do robot voices.
there you go. Well, I do recommend reading up on the lore, gentlemen. It's a crazy in-depth game with some really cool stuff in it. Everything from a Game of Thrones style Red Wedding event in the lore. Now, keep in mind, this was written in the 80s, so this is well before George R.R. Martin got the idea. And up to and including invaders from beyond the stars that bear a striking resemblance to people that left the Inner Sphere hundreds of years earlier. So it's kind of you get a real Game of Thrones in space kind of feel from the lore. Yeah, incidentally, those invaders from beyond the stars that everyone thought was going to wipe them out got their butts handed to them by space AT&T. So, just saying, it's a crazy universe.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a new one.
Yeah, it's really worth checking out. The lore is fantastic, and yeah, I really encourage anyone to check it out. I think you guys would have a lot of fun. But yeah, I think that's it really for the big pop culture news of the week, other than chronicling the slow decay and internal destruction of Disney. I don't know if there's much else going on.
Well, I mean, if it's anything like most corporations I've worked for, I'm pretty sure it could be much more easily mitigated than their current practice. Like, the idea of all of this lack of transparency, like, just be honest. Like, that's what performance reviews are for. And if your company is based on like most companies, especially in modern like business classes, they'll teach you like the number one goal of a company is to make money. And if that's true, fine, but how do you make money? You sell something. And if it's a service like, entertainment industry service, that there's going to be a bunch of weight on your product. And if your product doesn't sell, it used to just be like, all right, go back to a smaller AA studio and figure it out. Not, all right, try again with an even more beloved franchise. Maybe it was just the audience, but like, it's never the audience. The audience is the audience, whether you want them to be or not. So you have to make a product that actually sells. And if your product keeps sucking, like, you need to start looking at how much those operating cost cuts actually affected your company. It's like, if you're making money hand over fist, but your products are going down hand over fist, then maybe you cut too much of your foundation for the sake of what? Did Bob Iger, the CEO? Like, Bob Iger, take a pay cut. Help your team. Like, go focus on operations and operations costs, not this upper tier, keeping up with the Kardashians in the corporate world style policy. Like, it doesn't work.
Well,
inspect what you expect.
Well, interesting fact, it seems that a lot of the cuts are going to come from the executive level. So it sounds like you might already be trying to take some of your advice, Boyo Zapatos.
That's phenomenal. I hope. Like, honestly, the number one thing I say to managers all the time, it's inspect what you expect. If you don't know what you want your people to do, they definitely don't know what you want them to do. So if you're inspecting it and you're inspecting your expectations as well, you can actually, manage to lead. And yeah, you're going to have hard times. That's life. That's how it works. Sometimes your company's going to go down. Sometimes it's going to go up. But if you have effective managers and effective inspections and effective expectations, well, then you know why you went down. The market got expensive. Somebody beat you out that time. But none of your people did less work than they did the year before because you freaking counted it and you recorded it. That's management. And that's why I don't get why most executives are considered executives, because they're executively bad at doing their jobs.
Well, that's the why, we just don't have a proper meritocracy in any of our economic systems. And so this is the result. The people who know how to soften the people ahead of them to get the proper positions of leadership and influence. And, this actually kind of plays into why I think we're seeing what we're seeing with Picard. I'm just going to come right out and say it. I think a lot of the pop culture pundits out there have made Kurtzman to be more of a criminal mastermind of pop culture, so to speak, than he actually is. I actually am now convinced that he's just a businessman who wants to make money, and he probably had a bunch of people underneath him that said, oh yeah, all this woke diversity stuff is the new thing. The kids will love it. Everybody's going to buy it. It's going to make us lots of money. And all Kurtzman hears is money, money, money. And so, of course, he lights the project. Now, of course, he's still responsible. You put the people under you, to make these shows. And if they ended up creating bad shows, well, of course, it's down to the showrunner and the executive producer. But, I mean, look at how many executive producer credits are actually attached to these newer projects these days. Look how many how many people actually sit on these things, and then ask yourself how much of their influence is actually impacted on these various shows. It's not so much the EPs that are influencing the shows directly, unless you're Kathleen Kennedy. It's the showrunners. And so we've seen with the success of Picard and Terry Matalas, who is a Star Trek fan, whether you agree with his particular Star Trek fandom or not. I mean, the other thing that we also have to accept here is ask yourself, besides whining and collecting toys, what have you actually done for Star Trek? And I'm saying this for myself as well. I'm not on the show. I wasn't an intern on Star Trek Voyager. So it's
I would double that around back to the idea of Kurtzman. Like, that's what I mean. And that's what I said at the beginning. Like, a lot of us and anybody that's studied business understands that the first rule of running a company is to make money. And Kurtzman, I think, is finally realizing that the way to make money in the entertainment industry is by providing entertainment and not education. Like, everybody remembers being in middle school and not wanting to listen to the infomercials that they gave us for the class. Like, we all wanted to watch Saving Private Ryan when the history class finally let us that one time, So, like, it's education is important. People need to be smarter, but like, that's what the charity you support is. It's your public schools. Like, donate your charity money to your local public school. And even if your kids don't go to that school, all the kids that are growing up with them do. And they're the ones that are going to be coming into your office eventually to work for you. So like, if all schools are equally funded or adequately funded at the very least, then the education system works and entertainment can still be the entertainment system, rather than being a pseudo-intellectual expose into maybe we can educate people through subliminal messaging, which is...
that's just it. It's not even education. It's just blatant propaganda nonsense at the end.
So guys,
it's like vapid education. It's, hey, here's what I think the world should look like.
Re-education.
Yeah.
But it's re-education through the eyes of the beholder who isn't even sure what he's trying to educate anyone on, because he doesn't even know what he's talking about, but he's suddenly, audacious enough to put it on the silver screen, and this is what they got.
Well, okay, guys, I'm going to provide a counter argument to Kurtzman, because, look, you can argue maybe he is a business guy. You could also argue that he was losing Paramount enough money that they finally had to put their foot down and say, no, you have to make this profitable. You have to start listening to fans, right?
Definitely.
And now all the fans are like, "Oh, screw you, anyways," and they're like, "Well,
that's it, right?" I mean, they've they managed to monetize for quite a while, guys. They managed to monetize for quite a while the negative fan backlash, and they had people hate watching Star Trek Disco. Now they're in a situation where they have to be profitable because nobody's paying it any attention anymore. They have to turn a profit somehow. So his hand might have been forced.
It looks like Kurtzman got Kennedy, and is it Dave Filoni that's the Mandalorian?
See, that's just it, though.
John Favreau.
I don't think it's fair.
Terry, sorry, Parker, one second. Terry and Favreau are basically the answer. Like, these are two individuals that knew what they wanted, were willing to literally lay it all on the line. Like, I will quit if you get in my way. And that legitimately changed everything. Like, look at Mandalorian, look at this new Picard season. Kurtzman and Kennedy just proved that, like, you can be a showrunner, but you can't micromanage the show, because if you do, even if you try to like pull all of this trash out like Kennedy's trying with Indy 5, it's already there. Like, and the trash isn't what the topics are. The trash isn't the like what people are trying to say about be nicer to everybody around you. No, the trash is the way they're saying it, and without any form of writing like goals. They don't. Most of the reasons that we have problems with any show that we've had a problem with is because it didn't do rule number 1 of writing an essay. Hook your audience. If you don't do that, it's your bad. Like that's all they needed. Like that's what Favreau did. That's what Terry's doing. Like Parker was hooked, what, episode 3?
Episode 2.
Episode 2. Mandalorian, we were mostly all hooked right out the gate. And even we were so hooked that we assumed season 3 was going to be bad because of what happened to Gina Carano. And we were all ready to be like, guys, we lost Star Wars. But no, Favreau fought tooth and nail for us because he is us. Because like these executives, they are the audience too. Like, why didn't you like Star Wars, Kennedy? Did you put what you wanted Star Wars to look like? Did you rewatch your trilogy? How many times have you seen your trilogy? And do you show it to all your friends? Like, look at how good it is.
Yeah.
Or did you run like a scared cat every single time somebody brought it up?
Well, and here's the other thing on top of all that too is first of all, I don't think that the comparison between Kennedy and Kurtzman is actually fair or accurate. No, that's because I'm looking at both of these situations. You can clearly see where Kennedy tries to get her hands and influence and stuff. I really think Kurtzman at this point just wants to make money, and that's why he doesn't want to get kicked out. He doesn't care about the product itself. He just cares that it's making money or not, and that's why. But go ahead.
Honestly, I don't think Kurtzman probably had much to do with seasons 1 or 2 or like Discovery at all. Like, I think you're right on point there, Petey. He's like, he had a team come in and they were like, yeah, let's do this. And he was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And he just kind of sits back and, they have this other team that comes in and like, yeah, we'll do this. And you got this team that's going to make a little bit of money, maybe.
Well, and then when the product's made and the team starts, freaking out because of the bad reception, they go, oh, it's just the racists. It's their fault. It's the fans' fault. The fans are the problem. And Kurtzman's like, yeah, of course, the fans are the problem. Like, influence doesn't always just come from the top. It flows both ways, and people need to understand, like, the power of a pitch meeting.
That's where my comparison comes in. My comparison is not in each person's approach to the problem of losing fans. My comparison is each person's approach to the product, which is, I can do this better. I have never actually invested the time to find out why people love it. I've never actually cared about it, but I can do it better.
Right.
And that's dumb. Like, you can manage better. Mostly any management position, you can go from HR to a manager or something else to a manager or something else. That's pretty normal. But like, producing a product and managing the production of said product, especially one that has a legacy as rich as Star Wars, as rich as Star Trek, as rich as everything that's been bastardized today, like, that's like trying to take Coca-Cola and then going, all right, I'm getting rid of the Coca leaf. And that's what Pepsi did. And that's why Pepsi's always lost. Like, Coca-Cola monopolized the Coca leaf, and now Coca-Cola has the magic recipe that nobody can get, not because it's magically, unique, it's because it's literally monopolized. But at the same time, Pepsi still was like, I can do it better. And they didn't. They never did. RC Cola came close. Even RC didn't have Coca-Cola's marketing budget and advertising budget. And
still doesn't.
That's the big thing is they didn't do it right. They just spent more money doing it so much that they set a standard that, keeps making them money. But Coca-Cola has never invented anything as good as Coca-Cola since. They just bought everybody else's invention since.
Wasn't Discovery the most expensive television show ever made at the time?
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
Yes, it was.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, like we'll probably get more into this here with Picard soon when we get more specific, but that's the other thing I'm realizing too is like Well, you know what? I'll save it for when we get into Picard, which we might as well do our non-spoiler
let's hit it.
overview. So, because we're basically talking about Kurtzman now anyway. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not necessarily forgiving Kurtzman of transgressions either. He definitely bears the blame for the quality of the product because he's the one who did greenlight these projects and was behind them. Oh yeah, let me switch to Picard lighting real quick. Oh.
Yep. Don't get this wrong. We are judging the outcome and the actions, not the person. That's like everybody's capable of growing from their failures.
Yep.
Just stop pretending like you didn't fail.
Yeah, that's why on this show I'm deciding, and if you have any disagreements, we could either talk about it openly or privately. But I'm thinking for this show, we're not doing the hate bandwagon of people anymore. That whole nonsense about canceling people, wanting people fired, that's stuff that a lot of the woke idiots do as is, and it's stuff I got to be a part of when I was heavily involved with the Christian right, and it's just not stuff I care to repeat anymore. So
that's the disrespect part of, like, that's why the doors are so closed on so much discourse. It's because so many people have been disrespectful. That's not our goal.
Nope.
Our goal is to just call bad based on actions, because we can't judge people. We can only judge. People
are allowed to change. And I think I've seen a lot of, so I'll go ahead and real quick for my non-spoiler portion. I really thought this episode was good. A lot of exposition, but a lot of really cool character moments and reuniting moments. And you know what? It's a bold step to take with where they're taking the story, but we'll get into it when we hit our spoiler portion. Scogli, what do you think?
Oh man, I love this episode. This show just keeps getting better and better, and I'm just sitting around people that's better as the more I enjoy it, the more everybody else hates it. It's hilarious. Yeah, I thought it was cool. I loved the ship porn. I absolutely loved it. I just couldn't believe that people complained about that. Of all things to complain about that. Yeah,
well,
no.
I'll capitulate it. It was definitely a very member-berry heavy episode. I won't argue that point. But at the same time, I agree though. Like, the ship porn's the part you're supposed to enjoy, especially if you're not liking the story.
Yeah, like the Genesis 2 device. Oh, sure, it's all kind of pointless. And he this, that, the tribble. But yeah, whatever. It's fine. I don't care.
Yeah,
but it was a little much, maybe. But man, the ship porn was so good. I was just like, I'm like, there's a Constitution class. The original one was destroyed.
Yeah. Well, no, the A was properly decommissioned and got to live. Well, now we see where it's been sitting. Yeah. Coriel, what about you? Your initial thoughts, reaction?
Yeah. So after watching this, I've come to a bit of a conclusion that I'm going to put this forward. Any legacy character we run into in this series, I'm putting this to you guys. For every time a legacy character enters for the first time, if they are mad at Picard, each of you must take a shot. Okay, and we'll all we'll do it at the end of this, so that I can see you guys all near death from alcohol poisoning. Because it seems
I will not be participating in that game.
Legacy characters.
Well,
right? You won't, because you know what'll happen. Okay?
Oh, dude! If I participate in that game, I might burn my house down again.
Yeah, that's normal.
So, 2, I actually did love the ship porn here. I thought that was great. I thought it was very cool. I was sitting there going, oh, so that's what PD's Starbase looks like in Star Trek Online, right? Like, he has his own little fleet museum going, I'm sure, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, 100%, that's what it would look like. And I'm even mad, right? The other piece of it that I thought was interesting was we got a lot of amusing callbacks in this episode to previous plot points in the series, and that was really good. I we got more like new agey Worf, and that line was as cringe as we were expecting it to be.
Yep.
So I don't know, right? To me, this is out of all the, like, if I'm grading this Trek, it's earning a solid C-, which, it's a pass, but just barely pass at this point. So that's, it's still better than the last several Trek series we've gotten, but nowhere near the heights. That's my opinion, though.
Yeah. All right, John, quickly with your non-spoiler overview, and then we'll go to spoiler alert.
Yeah, I was definitely constantly going, I remember, but at the same time, like, these are the ones that actually were sweet for once. Like, watching Star Wars, the original episode of the sequel, or the first episode of the sequel series, I was super into the idea that, like, finally we have, like, the Unreal engines and, the educated CGI digital, like, builders to finally, mess with magic, right? And what a money source to, like, really dump all of your money into that digital, like, building of this world. Because I remember watching, like, the commentaries and stuff for Star Wars and stuff like that, and seeing how all the blue screens were done, and knowing that it was fake, and also, like, watching things on Netflix that have been getting better and better, and going, wow, magic is gonna be really awesome nowadays. And then Star Wars is on the way, and I was like, yes, finally, Star Wars. Like, let's see what CGI is, like, come to. And, I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. But with this is like, look at all of those ships in one place that actually looks like it's orbiting a planet. Like, look at the scale finally determined. Like, that spaceport Parker has a replica of, and I've always thought, like, that's the Enterprise D is bigger, right? And, not being able to perceive the perception dilation that was going on according to, like, because it was never on the screen, and now it was. And that was a member berry that had nothing to do with anybody except for me and Parker's toys. And that was sweet. Like, that was a good, like, yeah, I'm here for it. Super disappointed in Geordi losing his eyes. I don't know if that was, like, ever figured out in Next Generation before the end of the series, because I haven't gotten there in a while, if ever.
Oh yeah, he's got eye implants.
Yeah, I know. I that was a phenomenal CGI. I just still loved it.
Oh no, it was contacts.
Those were contacts.
They had contacts. They probably added some things in there post-production, but yeah, they were also contacts.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, because there was like laser beams going whenever he was processing a thought, and I loved that attention to detail. Like, anything messing with eyeballs like that.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, we don't want to get too much into. Yeah, we don't get too much into it, but no, that's one of the praises I give this show is the art is phenomenal. The set design is fantastic, and the use of CG and practical effects. I mean,
when I say I miss his eyes, I do mean the visor. I always thought that was such a sick character costume design.
Iconic.
I've always wanted a visor ever since. I've always wanted a Mandalorian clone trooper helmet ever since. Like, I love the idea of having extra for your, like, actually having a HUD. That would be sick. So I that's what I say when I say I miss his eyes. Like, I wish that they had done something where that visor was, cooler than anything Cyclops ever wore in any of the live action X-Men. But, the contacts and the after effects were phenomenal in the eyeballs. I'm purely disappointed from a lover of that costume, not from any other version of disappointment. Like, this episode is a masterclass in how to do member berries, because, like, Corian, you're saying, like, they keep bringing back the cast, but it's like, yeah, like, every series of Star Trek has always said that the cast is family, but we've never seen them die together. Like, they'll lose one together, they'll get over that death together, but like we've never seen them grow old and die together. And for once, we are in Picard's story. And like, I agree, should do a drinking game, hilarious. But also to me, they're hitting all the notes of nostalgia in lockstep. And I do still agree with my opinion of Worf's pacifism line. I still think that like the way he said it and then exemplified it throughout the episode, I'm thinking it's fun. I'm having a ton of fun watching this one.
All right, with that, let's go to spoiler alert. Corione, you've already got some grievances you want to hash out first, so why don't you go ahead and start off? What you think is the biggest sin?
I'm just going to start with absolutely the biggest sin. Look, we are at a point in Trek where in just the first season of Picard, they had mentioned, Riker had a line specifically calling out, enable the scanning for cloaked vessels as well. So the Federation has beaten down several cloaks. We've also seen that in Next Gen and in Voyager, they've run into older Klingon ships and can penetrate that cloak. So why is a 100-plus-year-old cloaking device able to beat the top, like the Area 51 of freaking Star Trek's sensors and security? It makes no sense. Okay?
It didn't make sense.
Agreed.
Security. He wasn't looking for it. The computers with the changelings were supposed to be looking for it, but like you said, they said it early on, add that to the list. Like, it's not protocol to scan for cloaked ships.
Okay, but dude, at the same time, like, this is literally the equivalent of Naruto runners trying to breach Area 51. And the stupid thing is, it apparently works here. That's where...
Wait. But if Area 51 knew those Naruto runners and also wanted those Naruto runners to do it, because the code was data, that's the only escape. But also, data was the only device capable of defending that fast.
Yeah.
I just that's where it completely lost the plot for me. Is there. The other piece, of course, is Geordi coming in with an attitude problem and then getting back on board of remembering, oh yeah, I like these people. Right? It bugs me that we're in that sort of scenario yet again. Right? Nobody sees Picard and hugs him and goes, oh, thank God I haven't seen you in ages. How you doing, man? They're always like, oh, God damn it, you again kind of attitude. And I don't know. Find some other way to greet Picard than with grief.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the first season did that with Riker seeing him and the other Borg, Hugh, seeing him as well.
Okay, but that's... All right, so my point is, though, this season, anyone who's greeted him has greeted him with grief. Yeah. And... I want to see somebody greet him like the friend that he has always been to all.
Wait, Riker did in the beginning.
Yeah, Riker didn't abandon him at all. Riker's
still been by his side, and even still is, despite circumstance.
Okay, but he's also been a jerk to Picard too.
So
I agree with you, especially in the sense that Picard wasn't just their friend; he was all of their mentors. Yeah. It's like going back to your mentor who literally, made you who you are, Commodore, and being like, thanks, but no thanks. I did understand that it was supposed to be from a new father bias. I'm a father, I'm
a father and a Commodore. I have responsibilities that go beyond old friends.
It was way too aggressive against a friend. All of my friends, no matter how hard I've wronged them, at the very least, gave me a hug, and then we got into the beef. Or, got over it within the first half hour of talking.
Yeah.
I've never been like cold-shouldered by anybody I've called best friend.
Yeah.
Like ever.
I mean, look, if I was directing that scene, I would have put LaForge in more of a, you know, God, it's great to see you guys. It's in forever, but gotta figure out how I'm going to explain. Right? Like that would have been completely reasonable.
Sorry, say again.
Is okay. Help me concoct some sort of elaborate lie.
And
like you know, it would have been a great man. I'm amazing. It's great to see you again after all this time. We're gonna have to configure and concoct some sort of elaborate lie as to why the Titan was here and how I got you guys to go. But I'll do what I right.
I think it just goes back to the to the issue that everybody has had with this show that they can't seem to get over. It's like, guys, these aren't the same people you grew up with on the show. These aren't the same people in the movies. These are people that have gone through and had lives, and that's basically what this show is trying to pick up from. Is like, okay, you know, Geordi's been a dad for so many years. He's a Commodore. And now he's getting reports that Admiral Picard is a rogue agent on some crazy old man quest. And you know, he doesn't know who to trust anymore right away. So I don't know. What?
Well, even worse, he's like getting false reports. Like it's literally propaganda. Like he's getting told,
right,
like Picard is a traitor. We don't know why.
So I'm just gonna say, I mean, we only got 4 episodes left to go, and if you're anyone watching our show not enjoying it, I would say just wait until the rest of the episodes watch, because I'm realizing that this show would have benefited more from bulk release of episodes. I'm standing by that. That's probably the one big grief on this. It works for me because I like episodic release, because it also works for our show. Of course, we probably would do episode weekly like we did with Terminalist, but the point is, if you're not liking it at this point, I would say wait, and we'll continue to give our honest review.
Wait a minute. Does that mean I get to wait until the end now?
No, I'm still watching Mandalorian weekly, so...
I would take it further, like, I think Corian even said it, like, it's still a C in terms of, like, his understanding of the story, but, like, Corian, like, and Parker, like, let's not pretend like you guys, let's not pretend like you guys aren't biased. Like, you guys have a lot of good memories associated with the old track, and I'm not saying any of what you're saying is wrong, but, like, that's actually a credit. Like, normally when we do these member berry episodes, the answer is, okay, it was a lot of fluff, it was a filler episode, all right. But Corian still is like, no, it was a C-, but like, it was fun. There were parts I liked, but there were parts that broke it.
Yeah, I want to real quick, I want to address the whole cloaking issue thing, because I did put some thought into that, and I realized we're kind of making an assumption about how cloaking works in Star. They don't really explain it. Like, they don't... In Star Trek Online, there's a difference between, you know, having, like, a battle cloak and a regular cloak. But they don't really go into the details about whether or not the cloaking device itself is some kind of mechanism that cloaks the ship. And then it's the extra technology, the sensor dampeners, the other stuff that Voyager used for mask energy signature. Like, I think the best way that I could excuse using the cloaking device from the old Klingon Bird of Prey is that a cloaking device is a cloaking device. Like, if you have it, that's all you need. Like that's, you know, like you need a battery to turn on a light. Doesn't matter what kind of battery so much, as long as it's got a power source. So if the cloaking has the magical technology to cloak the ship, it just needs to integrate with the rest of the ship's systems. And if that's how it functions, I could see that happening. I could see the Federation actually having cloaking slots built into ships after the Defiant. So I don't know. It's my theory that the technology itself, the piece of technology, can be advanced and modified regardless of whether or not it's a 100-year-old cloak, 2-year-old cloak. Like, the cloaking technology is just the same regardless. That's my argument. And it's the computers that
well, I'd like to build on that. And the sense of like cloaking, especially like in terms of space, like the only way they really scan for it is when certain sensors are refracting back at them faster than they should. Like, obviously there should be no what's the word? Like bounce back in space.
No return. Yeah.
No return, because it's the void. And so, like, yes,
I don't know. The Jem'Hadar were pretty damn good at being like, "Oh, there's a cloaked ship."
Yeah, exactly. Because like, if you spend if you send a ton of IR band as fast as you can, and suddenly you can create a sonar from that. You can have 1,000 lasers that are all perfect, and then for some reason there's a black hole. That's a ship. That's not necessarily like tracking and, thinking to do that, because IR seems like a waste, especially in space. Like, we have all these other fancy sensors. Like, more than anything, like I got two big things for the changelings missing it, even if the technology has already been, pre-stated in the series before, and that's fog of war and confidence in equipment. Like, going back to basics, it wasn't until World War II that the Marines were like, hey, maybe we should actually pay hunters more to join the military, because hunters know how to hunt beasts. Maybe they know how to track humans. Like, that took almost 150 years of American practice to finally go, oh, hunters matter. And I think that's the same thing that, like, today, like, managers are so reliant on their systems and their analysis and their analytics that they forget that eyes and ears on this program are where you really find out where the dissent is, and where you really find out where the problems are, and you start to actually, fix the operation. And that, I think, is what we saw more than anything, is these changelings were cocky. Like, we have the whole ship. We have the whole fleet at our disposal. Let's just use it.
Well, and we don't know just how deep or how much they've controlled, and that's still got to be revealed. But I want to take
that confidence in the law. No Federation vessel is going to break the Klingon treaty and use invisible tech. So, like, there's so many
Romulan treaty
to block out the thought, hey, maybe we should scan for that.
Yeah. So I want to real quick though. Let's take a quick step back, and just see if we come to an agreement. So the first thing I want to point out is I've had arguments about people about canon and how canon works. So real quick, from my perspective, on the way canon works for me in large properties like Star Wars and Star Trek and whatnot, is first and foremost, canon is decided by the creator. So, when George Lucas says that 1 through 6 is my story and just kind of separates himself from Disney, that's a pretty poignant statement that makes it clear that we have what I call Lucas canon, and we have Disney corporate canon nonsense. So I don't agree with corporations deciding what I'm supposed to accept as canon and not canon. If I want to like Discovery Season 3 and not care about the other 4 seasons, I'm allowed to do that. Every fan is. I haven't watched Discovery Season 3. I'm never watching Discovery Season 3, 4, or 5. And that's no amount of Picard being good is going to change that. So if we take that idea and we consider the fact that Gene Roddenberry passed away during Season 3 of TNG, then arguably anything post Season 3 of TNG is fan fiction, more or less.
Actually, I can counter that slightly, because he was briefed on the creation of Deep Space Nine. He was part of the pre-production, so he knew about it.
Shit. So I guess DS9 would technically count as canon, which is awesome. All the better. Yeah. Go ahead, Scogli.
I'm going to throw this question back at all y'all. How hard did your jaw hit the floor when they showed Picard's body in the freezer?
Honestly, they kind of prepped me for it when they showed Kirk's body in the freezer.
Yeah. we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I do have some theories and stuff I've seen and that we'll get into if we really want to get into a potential extra spoiler territory, so to speak. But so okay, we can say that DS9, he was briefed on DS9 before passing, so he knew it was going to happen. My point is, the creator isn't around, and some would say that Berman is the next guy in succession, and I would say, well, while Berman did a lot of good, he was also a bit of a shithead too. I mean, nobody's perfect. So my point is, real quick,
I did like Rick Berman era Trek.
I enjoyed a lot of it too, but there was also aspects I didn't like. Like, for example, 7 of 9's outfit was unnecessary, but that's a discussion for another time. What I will say is, it's commonly agreed upon, and I kind of have to go back to this and point this out, like with how cheesy Star Trek can get sometimes. Star Trek basically nuked the fridge with Generations. As much as I try to rationalize and make sense of the Nexus and that plot element, that's why when it comes to these new these newer shows, when they start to like get ridiculous and silly, or even the movies, I'm like, but the Nexus, bro. And that is still very much canon. That has not changed. I mean, now there's even a portrait of a scene in the Nexus in the bar.
In the bar, that's so funny. I love that.
I know.
That's so stupid. The whole show must take place in the Nexus, right?
You know, and that's really what we could argue that too, that all this is just Nexus canon, and it's like Picard didn't actually escape the Nexus. He just thinks he escaped the Nexus with Kirk, but that's all we're seeing is his continued Nexus fantasy play out. And season 1 and 2 of Picard were nightmares. So I want to also now quickly give my thoughts regarding the whole Gollum thing. And
right there.
Yeah. I think the message of this season was very well displayed in that speech, or in that recording that Dr. Soong's brother leaves behind. And I think it's important to take apart the pieces of that speech that really apply to Star Trek going forward. And it's really cool to take that really bad plot element from the first season and actually, instead of just running away from it, I like that they're trying to turn it into something good and something fresh. And I think it was really great when he said the line that, you know, preservation wasn't the goal, shouldn't be the goal. It should be the next thing. And so that's why he created the data lore type person that he did. And so I think that's what this particular season has been doing. It's been taking the aspects that do work, the cinematic stylings, the various artwork that we see on the sets, and as well as, I mean, even the ships, while the quality of the FX does need to go up, it still is cool to see all that stuff, especially from Star Trek Online. So
I want to jump on that one. The quote, because I loved it.
Yeah.
Is, evolution is not about preservation, it's about addition.
Right.
And that's such a beautiful thought, because like if we think about everything we've learned about evolution in terms of like survival of the fittest or survival of the sexiest, when it comes to preservation, the idea of preservation is about preserving the qualities you like in your significant other, whether you're a beast or a human. That's what, you know, that's the actual thing that decides whether or not we procreate and then evolve as a species. And in that instance, it's like, that's what Star Trek has really been all about, in terms of like the thing I really like about this show, and also dislike is, you know, the lighting is a problem. But if we think about it, like, it's darker because Star Trek was never capable of being that dark. Like, they never had the cameras that the directors could watch and read and, you know, decide how dark it should be. Also, like, this is Picard after years of sci-fi. Like, from TNG to now, everything under the sun has been tried, and a lot of it has landed. Like, look at Firefly, look at Star Wars, look at, like,
The
all
Expanse.
of these other... Yeah, The Expanse, look at... There's just Dune twice killed it. Like, that's nuts. And for them to, you know, try to grab the last generation, their parents, and then add on top of it, yeah, like I get why it's been hard. Like that's all. Like even we said it earlier. Like our beef isn't with the fact that like they made a mistake. It's the fact that they didn't own that they made a mistake. Because like this is what happens when you own it. When you own that you can't trust the people anymore to write it, so you're gonna have somebody else come in and overhaul it. This is what happens because that person actually did know where their genetics came from. They did know why their parents loved the older generations, why they loved the older generations in most people's cases, because most people are still alive. Like that's the addition. And I think this show is finally like exemplifying the standard that Star Trek always used to set, which is like we're not exactly sure about plans.
Star Trek has never been perfect. And that's the other thing, like, I would like to see these versions of Star Trek that a lot of the legacy diehard fans seem to remember, because don't get me wrong, I love it, but I love it because of what I see in it. I love it because of what it does for me. I acknowledge the fact that Code of Honor exists. I acknowledge the fact that Generations exists. And these are the examples of when Star Trek doesn't do as well, and now we have even better examples of bad. Like, you can literally just teach writing now with just Star Trek. You can take the old classic Trek and go, here's good writing, and then here's Discovery. And that's great, because now we have that.
You hit a huge point, actually. I just thought of, like, not only can you teach the difference between good writing and bad writing with Star Trek, but you can finally teach good adaptation and bad adaptation.
Yeah.
That, before Picard Season 3, that wasn't possible. All we have known is how not to do an adaptation. Picard Season 3, even though, like Corion has mentioned, there's certain parts that are rough is better than what we've had so far.
Rough is better than I want to kill myself.
Right, and I mean, but let's be honest, though.
That literally raised me.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, but let's also be honest, though, right? I mean, are we, and I think this is a question that we do need to ask, are we grading this on a curve because things have been so bad for so long that even something that's like making a 51% in the course is suddenly looking like gold? Or is it still bad? We're just willing to accept it more.
I would like to answer first. So my standard for this season wasn't very high to begin with. Mine was fan service. Like, it doesn't have to be the best Star Trek in the world. It just has to be decent. And so far, we've ticked all those boxes. I still stand by episodes 1 through 4 as being a solid, self-contained arc. So I would say that, yeah, I do have some bias because I do want to like the show. But I also think that you bring up a good point in that it goes both ways. I think there's a lot of people that are choosing to continue to dislike the show because their friends are disliking the show, or someone that they respect dislikes the show, and it's like, well, I could either have my own opinion or earn favor by pretending to further dislike the show. And that's why I keep coming back to, you guys just have to watch it for yourself and decide. I mean, that's the most logical thing to do at this point. And obviously we don't endorse piracy directly, but I'm not going to be checking your browser history to make sure you watched it. Honestly, I don't care how you choose to watch it. It's your business. But you can't make a decision on something if you don't watch it. And that's the one thing that I do always stand against. No watch, no opinion. Not sorry. Thumbs the rules. If you want to have an opinion that you want, if you want credibility, and that's all it comes down to. Credibility is not about being right. Credibility is about, 1, being able to admit when you were wrong and move forward from it and learn from it. And 2, it's simply about actually taking the time to do your homework and do your research. That's what credibility is built on. It's not built on, oh, well, this guy has the same consistent view on every single thing throughout. No, that person just has consistency. Consistency doesn't always equal credibility. It just means that with certain things, somebody's just consistent on those things. So I think everybody really could just, and this is regardless of where you stand. I'm not picking out the legacy fans. It's just, this is also, the new Trek fans that say that, oh, well, the 60s era Trek is so offensive. No. No, you need to calm down too, and you need to get some perspective as well. And everybody just needs to relax, because yes, it's real in the sense that someone imagined it. However, guys, it's still fiction, and we should just be arguing why we like the fiction, not hating each other over it. And I think go ahead.
I think the perfect example of that was a conversation I had with a new Trek fan that was quite upset at the 60s version where the women were wearing mini skirts and, how objectifying, until I pointed out that it was actually the women of Trek that wanted the mini skirts because of how liberating it was at an era where they had to wear, long skirts at all times. The idea of having the option to wear a mini skirt and enjoy their physical form was quite empowering to them. And they suddenly had a totally new perspective on the series when they started realizing how cooperative the creation of that series actually was.
And would that conversation have happened if Star Trek stopped producing after Beyond? Or if we hadn't had any new Trek since 2005?
Honestly, I think we could have... I personally believe that we definitely needed a different master of the ship when creating a new series. I do not think that the writing team associated with Kurtzman, let's put it that way, understood the storytelling style that Trek has, where it's supposed to be an ensemble cast and not necessarily follow a single character.
I agree with that.
But, and I do think that we had possibilities for better opportunities out there. I mean, we've even, in previous streams, which you should all watch, we actually did come up with some pretty fantastic ideas for a new Trek series, along with Doomcock and Cameron Pasha. So that was a great episode. So
yeah,
worth going back and taking a look. But if we were able to do that, right, it was because we were passionate fans for the series.
Exactly. And the other thing I want to point out too is Terry has been really good on customer service with Twitter interaction.
That is
his
That is true. I will say Terry Metalis has been a lot.
His attitude
I've
is
been
greatly
paying close
improved.
attention to that.
About
real
fans
super
with
great
respect.
attitude, even against the criticism. His hitbacks are just classy.
Yeah, no, he's definitely had an attitude change since we talked about a certain incident that took place a few months ago that we don't really need to get back into at this point because life moves on. All right, you guys want to hear my potentially super spoiler rumor theory regarding Kirk?
Hell yeah.
All right, well, once I share it, and if it turns out to be right, he's gonna probably... So, Dave Cullen is somebody who I absolutely have had the utmost respect for a variety of reasons. A lot like the Critical Drinker, he has a wide variety of taste and analysis that is unique to his, but I also agree with a lot of it. I don't agree with everything he said. There's a couple of things I think even on Star Trek he's had an opinion of that I'm just like, yeah, you're an idiot. But overall, I like a lot of what he said. In his review for this episode, he seemed to suggest that there might be another Golem. And he seemed to suggest and theorize that, well, what's the point of showing James T. Kirk's bones? Maybe he's going to come back. The way he delivers this part, because he's seen all of the episodes, he seems to put it in a way that it's like just a fan theory, but he says it with such confidence that I'm like, dude, I think you just spoiled the whole thing. And if we consider that, so I don't know if it's necessarily the Golem that he's going to come back in, but I think it's possible that Shatner's coming back as Kirk, and they might either use the Genesis 2 device to do it, or another Golem. Why? What purpose? Who cares? If we get Shatner back on screen, I mean, that alone will change everything for most everybody, I bet.
The collective meltdown. This guy is falling.
No, it has to be bad. No, it's bad. I swear. It's like, Shatner came back. And I think that this is going to happen because when Shatner's birthday rolled around...
I don't know. I don't want Kirk back.
I mean, he's 92 years old. If we get to see Captain Kirk on screen again on another Star Trek series at least once... does it really have to make sense at that point? Is that really a member berry you really want to contend the logic with on?
I don't know, man. I personally, I don't need Kirk back.
I
I don't
either.
need Kirk in that century. I think, we saw what happened to Scotty, right? When Scotty came back, he was effectively a man out of time.
Yeah.
And I don't need to see that with Kirk, right? I don't need to see Kirk being a man out of time.
No, I'm not
think
thinking. I think if this is actually going to be how it plays out, I think Metalis would probably be drawing inspiration from the Bring Back Kirk trailer. And so it would probably just be a grand pomp and circumstance. The Enterprise A shows up, all refitted with new technology. Although, then again, maybe he's going to bring whatever's waiting in Hangar Bay 12, which I would love to discuss anyone's speculation on what's in Hangar Bay 12.
I'm going to put together the stupidest idea that I could possibly come up with.
Go for it.
All right. You ready for it?
Yeah.
The Cochrane warp shuttle from Star Trek Voyager, the one that turned Janeway into a lizard.
God.
That's what I'm betting on, people.
Seriously, I get the complaints with New Trek in a lot of ways. I really do. But Voyager really has some duds, too. I think there's a Star Trek series that is definitely not as good as we remember.
Oh, no. I fully admit it's terrible, right? I just think that, if I could come up with the stupidest thing, the absolute stupidest thing that could be in that hangar, that's what it is.
I got one more. He's got a piece of the Nexus in a bottle, and it lets you, fly whatever ship you want because you're thinking about it.
I even
That's not bad.
one substantially worse. It's
This isn't what I was going for, but okay.
as Kirk.
What?
You
As
ass
Kirk.
Yeah,
But why is he hanging out at... Okay, but then why is he in Hangar Bay 12?
It's a super secured location, they think.
Oh.
Oh my god.
You managed to out dumb Corione. Good job. Skogli, if you want to continue the tradition of bad theories, go right ahead. But if you have a serious theory about what you think's in Hangar Bay 12,
Oh. I don't know. I just keep envisioning a Lycurgus of Borg battling Locutus of Borg. Somehow they could even be drifting in space while they do it. Why not?
yeah. No, I think, and this was, at first I just thought maybe it was a throwaway line. Again, going back to Dave Cullen, he seems to think it's the Millennium Falcon, which was canonized in Star Trek First Contact. I think it might be the resurrected remains of the Enterprise D saucer section, and either they built it a new star drive, or he's building some special Geordi project out of it, and maybe that's what shows up in the end. I don't know.
Maybe it's Moriarty's new holodeck prison.
I've got it. I now know what is in that bay. It's the only thing that makes sense. Geordi built himself a wife. It's the only way he could have been married.
Salvage the... No, even better. He salvaged the hologram from the Enterprise D, his personalized Leah Brahms.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's what's now been materialized as a functioning person, and is actually, that's his legal wife. Oh, man. So it's going to turn out he has hologram kids.
Well, see, I feel like this all leads me to because Corey asked what are our personal biases towards this, and are we giving it our credit? And it's I'm not. I don't like old Trek because it is so theatrical in terms of borderline Broadway play. The monologues, the emotion, and the setting, it all has always felt extremely artificial to me. But this one, that bias is why I haven't finished most of the series prior to the new stuff. But rewatching Deep Space Nine has told me oh, this is why everybody loved it, because while it was obviously theater, it was also equal to Shakespeare in terms of delivering human growth. Like, a lot of what they talked about and experimented with had nothing to do with science fiction and had everything to do with how to be a good human despite all of the options not to be. And that's where I think this show, for me, and is why it's hitting all the marks finally, is that, like, it is that again. Like,
Yeah.
watching Picard deal with the worst pain a father has to deal with, which is realizing that he inadvertently abandoned his son. Not purposefully, not intentionally, but inadvertently made a life so chaotic that the mother of his child didn't trust him to calm down, and that his child eventually grew to not need him. Like, that's rough. That is a human failing that transcends time. It always has. Like, a lot of stories, like Prometheus, is about Zeus's son, catching up to him.
Oh, you mean
Like-
the original Prometheus? Right, of course.
Right.
Not that dog shit movie.
No, not the movie. The story of Prometheus.
Had a great soundtrack though.
But that to me is like, that's crazy. That's the one they went with, and they're actually nailing it. Because like a lot of these shows I watch a lot of people try to do the human drama, and I'm just like, yeah, just hit the dude. That's gonna square like 80 of your problems. But in this case of Picard, like, it wasn't a just hit the dude answer or a just leave answer. It was literally like, oof. And they've never not made it oof. Like,
Yeah.
Even his son coming to him in this episode and being like, it looks like I actually did get some good genetics from you.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. I totally forgot about that.
That's
Okay. That is exactly the treatment of Picard.
Like, Picard was like, okay, she was just in not having him near me.
Right. See, and
Because
that's
I got chaos. And then his son goes, oh, and by the way, it turns out I also got some good things from you. And then he's like, oh, great, now stabbed in the heart again.
See-
If I had been there, I could have taught him that.
First of all, John, I want to say how proud of you I am for the things you said about Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine also has only recently started to get more popular, because when it first aired, it was actually the least popular of the Star Treks. Even when Enterprise aired, there were people that were like, oh yeah, I love Enterprise and TNG. Oh, did you ever check out DS9? Nah, that looked like crap. Okay. So
the documentary, like what we leave behind, I think. Yeah. Oh, it's so good, and it's so heartwarming
Oh yeah.
to see that, because they got shit on hard, like right until the end.
Oh,
And then they left. They had a great time, but man, they didn't get any love from the fans. And it was really heartwarming to see them come back to this warm reception and have this. It's really a celebration of them and the resurgence of the show. It's great.
Yeah, it is. And that's why
what we leave behind is probably. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I guess there's a bit of delay. No, you go ahead.
Okay, what I was going to say is what we leave behind, I would argue, is an absolutely must watch once you've watched through the series again. Like, watch through the series, all 7 seasons, then watch What You Leave Behind to truly understand what was going on in the background.
You know what?
This whole show.
We're going to watch that after we finish season 7. We'll watch that before we do season 8. We'll do the documentary, and then we'll play the episodes each week, and then go over the episodes.
Right.
And then
My question on that brings the debate about like this whole cancel culture and Kurtzman's response to it. Like, how much of Kurtzman was influenced by that story? Like, hey guys, all of this hype is hype, and it actually isn't real, and that's why they got so dogged about it. And like the same thing to the sequels, because the prequels to Star Wars got that same hatred. Like, I feel like a lot of these showrunners and stuff, they are right in the fact that like critics suck at their jobs, because that's why they're critics and not actual writers and actual content creators. But also, the critics got better too. Like, there were a lot of people like Parker and Corion. We're all technically critics now, but like, you guys love Deep Space Nine despite the critics. to me, I feel like there's been an evolution in both sides, but both sides is also still stabbing each other.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
hey, we've all been growing. Yeah, you've been growing. Great. Great.
Well, I mean, okay, look, the problems
At some
that
point,
people
somebody has
had.
to be a bigger man, and that's where I think the person making the money off of the project, it has the onus. Like, I do believe that everything that has happened is wrong, but I also now kind of see how they justified it with historical like documentation, with bad analytics, but still analytics. And that makes me understand, not forgive, but understand, because I need to know why you failed, and you do too, but I need to know because I'm not judging you, I'm judging the actions.
Okay, but here's my counter argument to that. Look, the issues people had with Deep Space Nine revolved all around this is a Trek that's boldly going nowhere, one. And two, what I'm going to call the blazing saddles argument. Right? You know, my goodness, a black captain, right?
Oh, Lordy.
Right? I mean, like,
but that's where I say that the fall for Deep Space Nine was the critics. The critics were stupid. The critics never were good at their jobs up to Deep Space Nine, let alone during Deep Space Nine.
Well,
but the critics aren't real in terms of like what they used to be. Like, we're the critics, you know? And what was our main focus when we started the show? The writing. That's what we care about.
That's what we focus on
here? A lot
here?
of critics started as, but you know, once you keep getting pomp and circumstance for your critiques, eventually you're going to get bias. And
well, Petey, you nixed my idea of reviewing bikini models, so I guess we are reviewing writing.
You know, I'm contemplating that alternate show again. Yeah, the Writer brothers on Pornhub reviewing
the Writer brothers, because we focus on them others.
The writer I don't. Yeah, I had a joke in my head that didn't make it to my mouth. Now the thing is, and the other issue with DS9 is the fact that it was sandwiched between two Star Treks as well. And Voyager, of course, when it premiered, started to go back to the episodic style, which was a stupid idea. It should have stayed more serialized like DS9 with occasional bad guys of the week sprinkled in, not, hey, magic reset button.
Show,
huh?
Considering the format of the show as well, too, right? It lends itself to that.
Right. The Enterprise going off on weekly adventures and getting a reset button makes sense because they're patrolling outside Federation space. There's a space dock within, reasonable warp distance every week. Okay, that we can buy. Voyager needed to be more serialized, and they needed to actually have continuity specialists keep track of the amount of torpedoes they had in their frickin' hold. All right, whatever. This is
it needed to be Ronald D. Moore, Battlestar Galactica style.
Yes.
Star Trek.
Yeah.
D&D. Back to your point, Parker, about the idea of what is the standard of canon. D&D is by far the standard. Like, certain things get accepted by the D&D community, certain things don't. But everybody's allowed to keep aiming and keep trying.
Well, okay, D&D,
obviously,
when it comes to canon, is a little different of an animal, right? Because there are multiple universes.
But more in terms of what the original writers did, where they let you write your own stories, told you to write your own stories, but also provided you with a booklet on where to start. That to me is what canon should be, and that's what Star Trek easily could be. Like, if one great or 10 great DMs got together, watched everything Star Trek has ever created a D&D tabletop that was explicit, which I assume Star Trek Online is pretty close. But if they did that and go, okay, here's your Star Trek booklet.
Oh, I already feel that Trek was that way since 2009. And that's when I came, and that's that's why I apply multiverse anthology to Star Trek. So that's why I'm not bothered, and that's why I'm not as bothered by these follow-on movies and shows that contradict each other and contradict the canon, and because it's like, look, you could either be obsessed with canon and argue about what canon is, only to come to the realization that without Gene Roddenberry, that there's no arbiter of canon. And then at the end, it's like what Cameron Pasha says. It's really all this stuff is just it's playing with your toys in your Lego room or your toy room, and some people just get to put it on screen. And that's really what it comes down to with these new shows. Nothing they do is going to get rid of classic Star Trek. Unless they can erase every single copy of classic Trek, all these new shows do is bring the potential for more long-lasting fans. In that if they actually get excited for the newer products, we can then direct them and go, hey, check out classic Trek. And I have a perfect example of this on my very own show because my brother's sitting on my panel watching Deep Space Nine, which he otherwise wouldn't have done if they didn't make Strange New Worlds.
Yep.
I should explain the reason. Butt people.
What?
Me now, as an adult who can understand all of their logic, but I hated the show because a butthead, literally, was a main character. I just couldn't get past butthead.
For what?
Just in general. Like, as a kid growing up, the reason I couldn't get into Deep Space Nine was because Quark is a butthead.
Oh.
Literal butt on his head.
Oh, right. The lobes. Yeah, okay.
Well, okay, so let me quickly address a couple of things. So D&D does canon very, very differently than anything else in existence. Each DM is encouraged to create their own universe individually, or you can use one of the pre-written worlds that the writers have used. D&D at its core is more or less a set of guidelines for interactive storytelling. The campaign worlds and the preset adventures are literally a writer going, this was my idea for an adventure that I played around with my friends that worked really well. Why don't you guys try it with your friends? That is a fantastic way to do a tabletop game. It really doesn't work in a long-running TV series. The other piece I wanted to quickly address is, PD, I really like your idea of it being multiverse, and I would buy that if the writers in at the beginning of New Trek hadn't absolutely insisted that all of this was the prime timeline. If they had said, look, this is a shoot-off timeline, I think you would have seen everybody giving them a lot more leeway and a lot more leverage.
Precedent was already established with Enterprise for that, though. Or, excuse me, not Enterprise, technically First Contact. Because in First Contact, when they blow up the Borg ship, a lot of Borg debris ends up in the North Pole, which they then discover in Enterprise. So already by Enterprise, the timeline's changed anyway, and that one's permanently left because Daniels doesn't fix that one.
Right, but you see my argument, though, right? Like,
yeah, I do. That's why I just go back to, they can call it whatever they want. It doesn't change TOS, it doesn't change TNG, it doesn't change, sadly, it doesn't change Voyager.
Here's where I go back to like D&D setting a standard for not necessarily like anybody come in and write a good D&D story, because, you know, DMs take practice and practice and practice. I've met enough in my life to know that like all of them still consider themselves bad DMs, even though some of them are the greatest story writers I've ever met, and they work day jobs. And I think the point I think about with D&D is more not in the what the DM is supposed to do, but in what the DM has available to them at the start. Star Trek, everything that has like multiple seasons of multiple series, like even Game of Thrones is an example, because House of the Dragon took everything we loved about Game of Thrones from the screen, but then also took everything that George R.R. Martin wrote into an anthology that was like supposed to be hearsay. Like it was literally written as a tome about a world that doesn't exist and written as biased writing. And then the show House of the Dragon was written on top of that. And so like for me, what I mean by what D&D really sets in terms of precedent is like, you can't give your characters new powers without roughing it through all of the old ones first, like figuring out how to concoct it within the rules of the universe. And I think that is the perfect example of how to adapt stuff in terms of like, there are rules, not because they make sense, but because that's what previous seasons, previous iterations have already agreed on. And because too many people agreed to those things, and they were supposed to be the smartest people in the galaxy, like Data agreeing to anything in Star Trek kind of has to make it canon. Because Data is supposed to be the smartest thing that we've ever seen next to Q, and Q isn't even that smart. Q is still trying to figure out the human dilemma, which has a whole other thing to deal with, you know? Like, that's the gods versus humans debate, and that's a crazy issue. So, but what these writers can do, and what I mean by like bringing in some good DMs, is more just establishing, here's what's come before. If you go against it, all of the people that are diehards are going to hate it. All of the people that are medium hards are going to hate it. All of the people that are light might not care. But you still have to get through the early adapters and the original adapters before you can get to the new ones. And if you don't take that into marketing and advertising and writing, like, conscience, like, you're not going to actually write a good product. And that's what we saw. Like, I'm not talking out of my ass finally. Like, there's proof of concept. Look at all of the shows that came before. They just tried to walk in and go, well, actually, we know how physics works, so this is how the Star Trek thing would have actually happened, and so that's why we wrote it. And it's like, yeah, but you broke all the other rules. And it's like, yeah, but those rules aren't real. No, but neither is the story. So those rules are real if you're going to write in this universe.
Yep.
And that, I think, is where Picard is finally, like, learning. Like, the story, the show, the series, and all the people running this series are learning, oh, those rules matter because that's why the fans love the show, is all the other shows were consistent and we're not. That's why we're the problem.
Yeah. All right, any final thoughts with Picard before we move on to Mandalorian? Okay.
Sorry, I missed that. I was just like, he just handed me a piece of garbage. I'm like, there's garbage cans everywhere. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, Scogli, why don't you, speaking of garbage, why don't you go ahead and start us off? No, I'm just kidding. This week's non-spoiler overview. What you got for us, Scogli?
Oh, hold on. Cycle me for a sec. Sorry, guys.
All right. Corion, what you got for non-spoiler?
All right. So, for non-spoiler for Mando, I would argue that this episode harkens back to what Mando does best, where
Agreed.
We have an overarching plot, but we also have that overarching plot coming to light through an episode of the week kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Right. I also think that we got to see in this episode some good character progression, some honest character progression, and, you know, some welcome changes, even though there might have been a little bit of cringy special effects in this one. I will also say, the gentleman who appears in one of the flashbacks, the Jedi Knight that appears in one of the flashbacks, does anyone know who that was? Because I do.
As a character or as an actor?
As the actor, what his first role in Star Wars was.
Oh, yes, I do. But we will get to that. We will get to that afterwards. For me, I thought that this episode was finally getting the season going the direction that it needed to. Honestly, I think we could probably trim some pieces from the previous 3 episodes and then just make this a 2-hour season opener. Because, as you said, this was finally getting back to what Mandalorian does best, and it's what we should have had right out of the gate. But we're here now. It's working for me. I like what we have. I'm actually interested in Grogu's backstory because of this episode, and, I'm actually kind of looking forward to this evening. Scogli, you ready?
Yeah. Oh, man. I want to love this show. I kind of do, but man, the Mandalorians are knobs. Like, holy Christ. They just fly until their packs run out of fuel. How far do you think they flew?
Probably about
They're like,
the
oh,
convenient.
he always gets away.
Yeah,
So now they're stranded there. But
the range on the jetpack is clearly at the speed of plot.
they're like training at the beginning. There's this buddy just standing there ripping shots at the whole way.
Yeah, I agree. They did get a little Murica F yeah there by shooting crap in the water.
What are you doing, bud? Oh,
I know. Where was Florida Mandalorian during that? You know, perfect time for him to show up. Pollo Zapatos, what was your initial non-spoiler reaction?
Honestly, like, Corbin, you hit it on the head when you said like an overarching plot was hit. Like, we've been getting tastes of the Mandalorian code, and I really enjoyed like getting where it came, like why these people accept it so much. And I feel like this episode gave us that through Bo-Katan. Like, everybody wants to be the Spartan, the killer, until they have to do Spartan killer stuff. And that's who Bo-Katan has always been. And, you know, her friends didn't do it, but for her to you know, finally be challenged by those that have been more faithful than her. Like, wow. To try is awesome, and to succeed is even more awesome and mind-blowing. I really enjoyed this episode.
All right, well, so you guys all heard it first. Now let's go ahead and get to spoiler territory, because boy, we got a couple things. So, to answer Corion's question, given his moment of Star Wars redemption, which is more than earned at this point, we actually got to see Ahmed Best as a Jedi warrior saving a youngling. I heard a rumor that this was originally an idea that was pitched by him to appear as a Jedi, doing exactly that in Revenge of the Sith. But of course, we didn't have time to have that, or it just didn't work out. And I do want to say too, so the reason why this is a big deal is Ahmed Best played Jar Jar Binks. And Jar Jar Binks was not well received as a character, not necessarily just by the fans, but a lot of critics also didn't like him, and there was a lot of backlash in 99. I know there's people that are saying, well, social media didn't exist. No, but the water cooler did. And so did the very early online blogs and a lot of different places that you could find. He also did receive hate mail in the mail from people. So it's like, this guy was driven to suicide. He has his story on YouTube. You can watch it if you want to see for yourself the struggle that he went through in overcoming his own self-destruction. And he also stayed dedicated to Star Wars as well. He continued to play Jar Jar, whether it was in an official capacity on Clone Wars or even jokingly on Robot Chicken. The man stayed dedicated to the character. And so to see him with lightsabers being a badass Jedi was awesome. It was really cool of Lucasfilm to do that for him, and even his response was just totally. Actually, Corion, would you be able to pull that up and get that set up so we could play that? Pull it from the Discord. Should be in shows.
Which piece are we looking for?
The Ahmed Best response to the fan stuff.
Oh yeah, I think I can get that for you.
If I have to do it on my end, everyone's gonna see.
I got it. Here we go.
So, also this whole scene, this is why I'm now interested in Grogu's backstory. It's confirmed he's not a clone. He actually is, was made the traditional way, I guess you could say. And, well, actually, we don't really know how Yoda reproduces. Yoda could literally just be his dad and mom, for all we know.
Well, to that, but also, I distinctly remember there being a female Yoda added to the Jedi Council at some point.
Yeah, Yaddle. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, I think I've got this set up. Let me double check.
So.
Okay, I think we're ready to go.
All right, yeah, here is his reaction.
Always tell social media, thank you so much, everybody who ever rocked with me. I am more of a fan have always will be. Always
I'll go ahead and pause it.
celebration and
Yeah.
more.
Okay, yeah, it's for some reason it's coming in very quiet and broken, but anyway.
Here, I can up the volume here.
Oh, okay. Start. Yeah, try it again.
Much for everybody who ever rocked with me. I am more of a fan than I am a person in these movies, and I have always been, always will be. I get just as excited when every new Star Wars thing drops, when people show up on stage, celebration, and I'm more of a Star Wars news junkie than anything else. So I'm right there with you. Thank you, and let's keep loving this thing.
I mean, what a class act.
It's
Just
heartwarming.
like, hey, thanks guys, but I'm just like you. Oh, it's awesome.
If I even, like James Bond my way into a stormtrooper outfit scene, that is so exactly how I feel about Star Wars and ever getting the chance to add to it.
Oh yeah, look, I am super happy he got an opportunity to be in a role that everybody who has seen it seems to have great respect and a lot of love for how he portrayed that role. I'm just, and the dude got a really rough ride, right? During the creation of episode 1, everyone was telling him how much everyone is going to love this character.
Oh.
And then we got Jar Jar Binks, and he just got annihilated, right?
Well, I would have loved the character if he turned out to be, the Phantom Menace and was the Sith Lord in episode 2. I mean, I fully believe in Darth Jar Jar theory was legit.
Yeah, I mean, look,
now more than ever, like with that dude playing Darth Jar Jar, it would have been the darkest of all Sith Lords.
I know,
right?
If you're that nice in real life, you can play the most despicable, sinister person on the screen. Like that would have been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's my piece. Is I would have loved to have seen, just where he could have gone with the character that he was kind of promised. And it's a shame that he didn't get the opportunity initially that he thought he was going to get, but I'm so happy he got it now. Because the guy is just such the dude is a treasure. And listening to how wonderful this guy is, it makes you realize just how wonderful this guy could have been had he had the right character that everyone would have backed him on. And now that he's getting that, it's so well earned. Yeah,
absolutely. And that was really when I realized who that was, I was actually very, very happy about it overall. And yeah, like I said, it was well executed. I liked it. I want to watch more of this story now. I'm actually, like I said, I'm looking forward to tonight's Mandalorian. And I mean, whether or not we get more Grogu backstory or if we finally get more Mando lore.
Is Grogu the Mandalorian?
Well, I am going to say this. Has anyone else noticed that the PTSD auto hammer that the armorer seems to have? Like, anyone who's sitting in the room when that hammer goes gets horrible flashbacks?
With how much divine province seems to surround the mystery of a Mandalorian and her tools, I wouldn't be surprised if that is just something that the tools naturally cause, as they have this moment of, here you're getting a new armor piece forged for you, but you have to confront an element of your past before you receive it. Oh, and by the way, you don't get a choice. You're going to see the vision regardless. I don't know. I kind of dig it.
In that case, that's a fantastic way to put it. So in that case, I see her as like Corleone leading any of the people within his coven, in the sense that, like, hey, I'm going to go mix this herb, and while I'm mixing it, you're going to hallucinate to your worst possible memory and overcome that memory because you did.
Well,
you survived And now you are it kind of makes the like Mandalorian metal and the process of forging it kind of seem like a hallucinogenic effect. And it has to do with that hammer, the way it hits, the resonance frequency, all like obviously.
Well, the armor has to mean something.
The definition of Space Smith.
Like,
and so like theoretically, like if blacksmiths had thousands of years to like perfect their craft and only ever stayed smiths, they would hit certain metals and hit certain frequencies to achieve certain types of material. Like that's part of the theory behind Damascus steel and why it's never been replicated. So like Corin, I don't think that's an actual accident. I'm starting to kind of feel like it's part of the, like, this is why you sit in here for when your armor is created, like Parker said, like, it is its own...
Everything the Mandalorians wear has purpose.
Yep.
Not only purpose,
I like it.
Personalization.
Yeah.
That's even more, but like, now, it kind of seems like the personalization, like, part of the process is the hallucination, which then attunes the metal to the individual.
Well, funny you should mention that, Pollo Zapatos, because fun fact, the mead horn that I have, the Viking kind of like drinking horn, it is known in my circles that the specific horn I've got, we call it deep meaning, because what inevitably winds up happening is when we make a bottle of mead and pour it into the horn and pass it around, it never fails. People have deep, meaningful epiphanies while drinking from that horn. Up to and including, oh crap, I really need to get my life in order kind of stuff. Right?
Shit, I forgot to pay that bill the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this actually like freaking happens, right? Where people are like, damn, I've been neglecting my wife kind of stuff while they're sitting there drinking this and like having those moments.
Yeah,
and
yeah. So you want to know what the hell just happened because I said that? Yeah, Marie just remembered to pay the truck bill.
There we go. See, even just mentioning
it, it brings it up. Yeah.
I'm warning you guys, man. Like, I'm going to have, that's going to be the big trial I'm going to have you guys out for at some point. You guys come up here.
So
I'm
basically,
up a bottle of mead, and we're going to have a moment.
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to do that. But so basically, what we've established is that the Mandalorian armor hut or area section is basically a sweat lodge.
Yeah,
she's the shaman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's what they've been setting up in this whole thing. That
she's
spirituality to the Mandalorians, and I think it really came out in this episode where because before we'd only seen Din go through the process, right?
Yeah.
And, the sound of the hammer could have reminded him of the blaster bolts from when his family died. But now we're also getting that with Grogu. I think we're onto something here. I think that this is the, deeper spiritual side of Mandalorian culture coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, like she fits the purpose. I never thought about her as a shaman, but she absolutely is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's wild that you guys didn't draw that connection, because for me, I've constantly, and now even more than ever, feel like she's the leader of the werewolves in Skyrim. Like the one Sky Forge in all of Skyrim, it's supposed to be the forge that's like the best one in the game.
Yep.
But like that's kind of where I saw her inspiration, is like she is the chieftain while simultaneously, more importantly, the armorer. Like, if you're going to tell all of these people to harden themselves in a particular way, to devote themselves to a cause, why not be the source of their strength or the source of their defense, or a major source of their defense? And like, back to the idea of like her honing her craft over millions of years and thousands of years, and just the Mandalorian craft in terms of Mandalorian metal, like, to me, the whole like idea of her being that Skyforge chieftain, like it always made sense, but now, especially adding in the psychological and the potential for hallucinogenic effects created by mashing the metal with that certain metal masher, like it's not like the Empire caught on to that because they probably never knew the frequency to hit it at or the pressure to hit it at or any of that stuff, because that's like taught. That
Yeah,
They also made their armor. They also made their armor out of poisominium. So even if they got, a slight graze of a bolt, it's automatically designed to kill the wearer.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna start referring to that thing as the armorer's primary forge piece there as the power hammer of destiny. I think it's it really puts people on their path, right? It's kind of neat.
Yeah, no, it is
character development.
Yeah, the power hammer of character development. There we go.
Like I said, I just wish it didn't take so many episodes, but
not even as a plot device, but just as like how to find your character. Like you have to remember your darkest times and remember you got through them, and also remember that you're being taught a way to always get through them with people that will always get through them. Like part of the Mandalorian code more than anything is do it or don't is up to you, but if you do it, do it
right.
Hard. Yeah, do it right. Do it 100% and never let go. And that can only be established through like that's where I brought up the Bo-Katan part, is like she's always been Mandalorian by blood and it's meant everything to her whole life, but finally she's meeting people that are Mandalorian by creed, and wow, do they care more than she does. Well, and she was so honorable about that. Corian, you had a great point in our pre-show about that.
Yeah, well, I actually just wanted to bring up an interesting thing that I think it's really important, because now that I've just realized now that we're on this piece, this is something super important. Okay, when Din has been sitting in there and the armor has been making stuff, we see PTSD flashbacks about who he is as a character. When Grogu was sitting there, we got PTSD flashbacks, right?
Yeah.
When Bo-Katan was sitting there getting the replacement pauldron, all her thoughts were around the mythosaur she saw. That's where her character's developing towards.
Yeah.
And that is an interesting thing to realize.
And to tie that all to the whole series of this is the way. Like that became a meme so fast. But to me, like that became a meme because like one, organized structure is really nice. Even if it's a goal, it's still better than no structure, period. But then for her to be like, not only is everything I was born to be worth it, but also everything I thought were fairy tales are real. That's like meeting Santa Claus. Like,
oh yeah,
be shook.
Yeah.
And I will also say this: like, we had an amazing moments in this episode with Bo-Katan, because we got to see, and I would argue that this is something that the Mandoverse has been doing really well. We got to see a girl boss character that actually earned it, right? She was the one that her first thought was not, I'm going to chase off in a jetpack and try to catch this thing. No, I'm going to my ship. I'm going to track this down. I figured out where it is. I'm reporting back in. And everyone sat there and acknowledged right then and there, look, you were the one who thought this through the most. You are the one who's leading this. And everyone showed that appropriate level of respect. And she, in turn, showed the appropriate level of humility by like turning to Din and saying, hey, how do I eat with my helmet off? Like, what's the protocol here? Right? She didn't have all the answers. She wasn't trying to rock the boat. She was trying to show that she respected them the way they were showing respect to her. Like, and that's fantastic.
To add to that, when she was notified that the commander of the hunting party gets to stay by the fire, instead of being like, oh no, bro, you got it. Like, I get it. I get all this respect and stuff, and I respect it, but I'm better than you by giving it to you. No, instead she was like, I know what honor means to me and to them now, and wow, does this feel good.
Yeah.
Lonely, but good. Like, you saw it on her face. I love that, like, they haven't taken Din Djarin's mask off yet, but when Bo-Katan does it now, you you kind of are like, I liked actually seeing her face. She is pretty. Like, she's somebody worth, like, a main character worth looking at. But then on top of that, she's also following the rules. And for her own reasons. Like, the Smith even told her, take it off if you want to.
Yep.
But if you don't, you're one of us forever. And if you do, you got to go swimming again. But, like, you're one. You're here.
Oh yeah. It was so well done. It was so respectful to everybody. Like, look, this is how you do a actually strong female character, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, is she like Ragnar's dad? Frigging carrying a minigun up the mountain on his back because, he's just a beast of a human being? No. She's got her own strengths. And she's got strengths that make sense for the character.
Was she the fastest or the smartest one? No. Was she the one that has the most diverse education in terms of random encounters and rational ways to approach random encounters? Yes. That's why she grabbed her ship.
Yeah.
Well,
Look,
wasn't Boba Fett's grappling hook powered though too?
Oh yeah.
Like Batman's.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
I basically figured, like, after watching them do the grapple hook scene, I was like, oh, so the Mandalorians are just a bunch of poor Batmans. That's pretty much what it amounts to.
I was shocked they didn't just pull them right up
when
there.
you're fighting space wizards at your disposal, you use, dude.
Yeah, no, I mean, you use whatever tools you
Didn't
have.
pull him up. I just reran the scene back in my head. You watch him shoot it onto Jabba's ship, and then he freaking Vin Diesels his way all the way to the point where he can grab the ledge, and then the Sarklan grabs him and pulls him back down. But he climbed. They kept that. I'm 98% sure.
I just remember him flying into the sail barge like a bitch and then ending up in the Sarlacc, but that's just me.
Fancy McGee.
I know, that's why it's like people are like, oh, these Mandalorians are so dumb, they're getting their asses kicked. I'm like, Boba Fett also, this goes back to what I was saying during the Star Trek thing. Like, I think people remember Star Wars being better than it actually is. I know I have. And I'm not saying that it's bad, I'm just saying, like, Star Trek, Star Wars, okay, they have very good moments. They have very strong, well-written moments. But they also have a lot of really cheesy, cringy moments as well. And overall, the show is supposed to inspire ideas. Shows are supposed to inspire ideas and imagination. They aren't supposed to dictate how you're supposed to enjoy this stuff. And I think that's the hurdle a lot of fans are having trouble getting over and accepting is, guys, it's okay to enjoy this. Yeah. And it's okay, but it's also don't treat it like it's not sacred. What's sacred is what's in your heart and what's in your mind. And they can't take that away from you unless you let them. And that's why I keep going back to Multiverse Anthology. That's why I keep going back to, guys, it doesn't matter if they try to change the canon, and you can't see me doing quotes right now, because they don't actually change anything, they just add a new story. That's all it is. And you can either like the story or not like the story. And what I did, and I'm trying to say this not because I'm better than anybody, because I have shit. If you guys knew me from before I started this channel, you would see how opinionated, stuck up, and toxic I can actually get. And I absolutely can get back to that point at any point. I accept the fact that because even though I'm not that person now, doesn't mean that person can't come back. And it also doesn't mean that I can't try to be better. But I do that by recognizing that if something is affecting me negatively, like a bad Star Trek show, I'm just going to walk away. Like after season 2 of Discovery, I was like, you know what? It sucked. It's awful. I don't like it. I'm moving on. And that's what we did with Halo episode 1. I was like, nope, not for me. I don't care about Halo as far as the TV show. I still love the games, but I'm not worried about it. It doesn't affect my life anymore. And that's really the most effective message you can send these people is If you don't like it, say, yeah, this is just not good and here's why, and I'm not even going to rage about it. I'm not even going to talk about it. Now, if I hear that you guys change it, I might come back. The whole reason we're here for Picard Season 3 is because a lot of people that I trust...
There was a massive shift in the plot.
Yeah. When Gary from Nerdrotic and Dave Cullen and even Red Letter Media starts to turncoat, you gotta start to wonder, well, am I still hating this because it's actually bad, or am I maybe being a little bit insecure about wanting to be accepted? And that's what I honestly think is a lot of what's going on at this point. Now, I could be wrong. People are watching it and they're not liking it. That's great. You're allowed to watch and not like it. All I encourage people to do is be reasonable, be logical, and try not to be super emotional. And I know that can be hard not to be emotional because this stuff means a lot to us, but that's my point, guys. The stuff that means a lot to you is still there. Your toys that you collected because you were inspired by Star Trek. Yes, Corione, you're right. I have a fleet of ships in a museum. But I also have a fleet of ships in a museum in the form of micro machines as well.
Well, yeah.
And nothing that Kurtzman has done has ever caused me to go take those things and throw them away. It's not going to. Unless Kurtzman personally erases every copy of good Star Trek, I just can't buy the narrative anymore that he's out to get the show, you know?
Look, I never bought into the idea that he was trying to, wipe out old Trek or anything like that. I don't think that was the point.
Yeah.
I think the concern that a lot of people had was that because of the lack of writing quality in the new Trek era, that people were going to assume that the old Trek was guilty of the same problems by association. And I think that was always the primary concern, or the existential threat of new Trek.
Yeah.
And while I do understand that position, and, to a certain degree, I do agree with that position, I will also say that at any point, decent writing 100% wipes that argument off the map, right? If you get somebody's quality writing to come out and be there and show like, hey, we get out of that equation. And look, if it turns out that the last four are on par with some of the best Trek that we have gotten in terms of writing, I'll be down with it. And I mean, the best part about Trek is there are some of the best episodes of Trek that we can actually argue on whether they're episodes that we personally like. There is an episode coming up in Deep Space Nine that everyone I've ever talked to heralds as one of the best episodes. And while I agree the writing is fantastic, I just don't like the episode.
The Visitor?
Right? Which one is that one?
Oh, that's a season 3 one.
No. This is later in the series. This is the false vision, shall we say, from the Penance vision.
Oh, I don't quite remember what you're saying, but that's okay, because we'll get to it anyway.
We'll get to it. I'll bring up my argument for and against.
All right, real quick. We're only gonna have time to do one DS9 episode. It's one I'd prefer to have a little bit more time to discuss, but it's okay. The next one's still good too. DS9.
Well, actually,
huh?
It's 10:28. Maybe we should do. We've got 2 minutes, don't we? Until
we got 4 minutes.
The end of show.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe we just have to put off these DS9 episodes for next week, sadly. Because you're right.
I think so.
You're right. So
maybe open the show with a quick hit the 2 episodes, boom, boom, and then carry on, and then catch the next 2 at the end.
Maybe we'll discuss it in after the show. But yeah, okay. We got 4 minutes left, so we'll just
let's. I guess this is the best way to put it. Why don't we discuss where we're at with Deep Space Nine right now and how we feel about it, right?
Well, it's continuing to rock my world and remind me that season 1 and 2 were actually better than we remember, at least so far. It's also, I mean, John was right. Run Along Home actually isn't the worst. I think Invasive Procedures is the worst episode of DS9. Hands down, one of the worst episodes of Star Trek, really just kind of by the nature of what that episode suggests.
It's Code of Honor of Deep Space Nine, right?
Yeah, it is. What about you, Scogli? I mean, you just recently joined the bandwagon.
I absolutely love Deep Space Nine. I didn't watch it back in the day. It wasn't on a ship. Yeah, it was. I don't know. Anyways, so I watched it through a couple years ago, and it was amazing. And me and Nemesis are just going through it right now, where we built 4 or 5 episodes into season 6. So it's cool. I'm totally on board with going back to season 2 because I've had some pretty disparaging comments about seasons 1 and 2, but so far the ones that we've watched, I'm like, man, these are really good episodes. 4 awesome episodes right in a row. Season 2.
Yeah, I think the reason why we look back at the seasons 1 and 2 of Deep Space Nine as not as good is it's like these episodes are like solid 9s out of 10s. Like it's a solid A series until this point. It's just when it gets dialed up to freaking 11 in the following seasons is why we think of these earlier seasons as lesser. It's because it's like I guess the best way to put it is it's like imagine going to like the ice cream shop and you're getting some top tier ice cream, right? But then like a couple of weeks later, they bring out the $50 challenge meal or whatever, right? Where it's like so much amazing stuff in one package that there's no possible way you can appreciate the nuance of it all. And you're just shocked by it. I feel like that's what we're getting with Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, but let's talk, John, real quick. Your thoughts, being the newest viewer of DS9, on your first watch through.
Well, yeah, I would say I grew up judging it by its cover, judging it by its aesthetic, and Star Wars was, to me, its comparison, and it's like, where is the Force powers, right?
The wormhole.
Right, yeah, I have no shame in it. I don't even consider my opinion wrong. I still think Star Wars is superior because of the magic. I love magic. My thing is like, I started to learn a thing or two about magic, and I also started to learn a thing or two about, adventure and camaraderie. And now watching Deep Space Nine, I look at it and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what me and my friends do. That's like all of my experiences in the Marines. Obviously, I never got to go to space, but at the same time, like most of these episodes, most of this series, you could put over a Marine base. You could put most of this into MASH.
Oh, absolutely.
And it would still work. Like the way Deep Space Nine deals with the military while simultaneously dealing with a foreign group,
military,
while simultaneously dealing with a civilian organization. To me, Deep Space Nine is like one of the few shows that tries to blend them all. Like, whereas like Law and Order is always police and order. At the same time, like Star Trek used to always be the good guys in space.
Yeah.
Like whitewashing Christopher Columbus. But then Deep Space Nine is like, yeah, if you never talk to anybody else, but when you actually talk to these people, just because Picard or Kirk saved them doesn't mean their life magically got better.
Right.
Like they didn't automatically achieve utopia, and Deep Space Nine talks about that.
Yep. All right, well, we do want to thank everybody for watching tonight. Shout out to Nemesis of Eden and Orville Nation for popping into the chat real quick. We do appreciate all our support. And I'm P. York with the Writer Brothers. I'll have a camera, and we'll see you next week.
This has been a presentation of the Writer Brothers Tuesday Night Live Show. The Writer Brothers, restoring respect into discourse.